Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna make a really nice and cozy hoodie because it's like really bad weather at the moment. I don't know what's up with spring, but it's rainy, it's cold, it's just not nice. So what's the best thing to do? Get a really nice cozy sweater on. So that's the project for this week, and I'm super excited because I tend to not work with knits because I don't really like how they behave. You know, I don't really like working with it, but obviously they're a great material, and especially for cozy clothes like a hoodie, it's perfect. So that's what we're gonna tackle today. And the first thing that we're gonna do is actually work on the hood. Now I already prepared my outer hood, so it's like a lined hood, which you know, it's gonna look really nice on the inside because it's gonna have both on the inside and the outside of the hood, it's gonna have the right side of the fabric. So that's what we're gonna start with. You're gonna find on the pattern the placement for your drawstring holes. You can do them however you like. You don't have to use eyelets. That's just what I had and what I used. Obviously you can use, you know, a buttonhole, you can hand sew this, you know, there are so many options. I made a reel about how you can actually make eyelets without any metal wear at all, and many of you guys actually asked what the purpose of that specific version of an eyelet is. This is the best way to use this. So you're gonna have like a really neat looking fabric lined like eyelet that you can use for the hood. And what we're gonna start with is just put right sides of the hood and the hood lining together. So from up here, which is gonna sit right here on top of the head, all the way down to the center back, which is this point, we're gonna do the same thing for the lining as well. We're going to iron the seam allowance open because this is all gonna like lay on top of each other, and if you don't iron it open, then it's just gonna be very bulky. So I'm just gonna use my tailor's ham and like put my fabric right on top, because then I can use the curve and just iron my seam flat. And now I can put right sides together of the lining of the hood and the outer shell. Just match up the front and then also the edges. And you're gonna find that the shell is a tiny bit bigger width-wise. You can see it right here. That's because we're gonna fold the shell towards the inside to create a drawstring tunnel. So that is basically the facing attached to the piece already. So we're gonna save one step. And make sure while you're sewing this that the seam matches up and the seam allowance lays open like this. Like this, and now we can sew the front edge together. And now before we do the whole tunnel thing, we're going to iron the seam allowance towards the facing. Like this, and once we fold this, you're gonna see that the edge already lays really flat here, so that is really nice. And now the only thing that's left to do is measure 2.5 centimeters of the tunnel and iron the front edge at that measurement. So what I will be using is some metal ruler, so something like this right here, and there is right here the 2.5 centimeters already measured out for us, so I can just take this and put it right here to know where to iron. And I will be doing that all around the front edge. You're gonna find a notch here in the neckline anyways to mark where you fold, so you can just use that as a guide. And then this is gonna look like this, so this should be right in the middle of the tunnel for the drawstring. And if you find that your eyelet is not perfectly centered, that can always happen with knits because they move around, and that's just what it is. You can obviously move the tunnel a tiny bit in either direction to center the eyelet perfectly. And now what I will be doing is to sew from the lining side like this right into the ditch of the seam to fix everything in place and to have a functioning tunnel for the drawstring. But for my eyelets right here, I'm actually going to pin to see if it's going to be centered, and as you can see, I would sew right here. It's perfectly centered, so I can just get started. And with that, give it a last press, and the hood is already done. So we can start with the corpus of the hoodie. So for the corpus, don't mind the embroidery, it's like literally an insider between my friends and I, so just something that we laugh about, saying my name like this. So anyways, we're just gonna put our front piece right sides up and then our back piece right sides down and close the shoulder seams. Right here, we're gonna overlock as well, and then we're gonna iron towards the back. Now that the neckline is like done, it's like a circle, I like to add the hood already because it's, for me personally, it's just easier to not have the sleeves attached yet and to have everything more or less kind of lay flat. So what I do for this is check that the right side with the eyelets lays towards the right side of our corpus. We can align our center back, which should be marked with a notch in your back piece. Pin this together here. Make sure that also the two hoods match up here and everything lays like really neat and tidy. Then we have the shoulder notches in both hoods. Align that with the shoulder seam. Make sure that the seam allowance lays towards the back as you just ironed it. And then here in the front, you're gonna find in your drawstring tunnel here, you're gonna find the center front. So these are going to overlap. So we're gonna put the center front in the hood together with the center front in our corpus of our front piece. And then we're gonna repeat the same for the other side. And here it's super important, also pin the tip here of the hood. Pin that in place as well, because that's the first thing that's just gonna slip away while sewing after you pinned the other layer on top here. And align the center front notch here as well. And also pin the tip of the other hood like down, like this. And now once you sew over top here, you know that everything aligns. And if you like, you can add another one here for the necklines. Now we can sew the neckline and overlock this. You can, if you want to, like add tape to the back. I personally did not like doing that, did not have the best experience with it because it tends to get very thick with the French terry that I'm using. You can, if you want to make it even more neat and tidy. I'm just gonna overlock it and then top stitch the overlocked seam allowance down, and you know, that also looks really nice. But obviously you do whatever you want. So let's sew the hood on. And now with this all in place, I'm just gonna sew the seam allowance towards the corpus, so away from the hood, because the hood is already thick enough and it wants to lay that way anyways. And then I'm gonna top stitch like 5 millimeters next to it so that I have a neat finish and the seam allowance on the inside is also sewn down. The hood is done, now we can continue with the sleeves. Obviously, I always say that if you prefer doing the sleeves with your side seams closed, do that. I prefer putting the sleeves in with my side seams still open, so either or works perfectly fine. So the sleeves are pretty straightforward. The sleeve point is a tiny bit further towards the front, so you know exactly that this is the right sleeve, this is the left sleeve. We're gonna put right sides together, align the underarm point right here, align the shoulder point in the sleeve with the shoulder seam in the corpus, and then align the other side with the underarm here as well. We're gonna overlock as well and do the same top stitching towards the piece. So different than I usually say iron towards the sleeve, we're going to sew the seam allowance towards the corpus, and we're gonna end up with this result right here, but also on the sleeve. And now with that done, we can put right sides of our side seams together like this. Close the side seam. Usually I like to start from the hem towards the sleeve, but because we ironed and top stitched the seam allowance the other direction this time, I'm actually going to start with the sleeve and sew towards the hemline because the seam allowance lays this way. And after that I'm going to overlock the seam as well, and we're going to iron it towards the back. Okay, the only two things that are left are the cuffs for the sleeve and the actual hem. So both of these are usually made from a 2x2 rib or something similar like that, usually a rib fabric. I did not get a 2x2 rib in the color that I wanted. I got this 1x1 rib, very tiny rib, in this pretty much lighter green, but that's all I was able to get. I did another one for my boyfriend in this red color, where I got this very nice 2x2 knit, which is, you know, better for a cuff or the hem, but that's fine. You can obviously also use this type of smaller rib, so that's like whatever you can get, you know. I know the knit game, like getting fabrics in specific colors that are not usual is super hard. So I am super happy that I got something at least somewhat similar. So what we're gonna do for our cuffs is to fold right sides together, the shorter sides together, and sew this. Same to the other one. And now that we have these sewn together, we can go ahead and press the seam allowance open. Now I like to just lay it like this and then just iron over top of that, not caring if we're gonna, you know, flatten the folds here, because it really does not matter too much. And then we can fold this right on top of itself so that the seam meets and everything is, you know, perfectly matched up right here as well, same as with the hood. Now we can just flip everything onto itself and we have a perfect cuff, which we're just gonna put right sides together with our sleeves like this, also matching up the seam in the sleeve. And then you should find another notch for the middle of the sleeve, same as to the cuff. Just match these two up, and then while stretching, you're gonna sew both pieces together. Now, some of you might also ask, are you using any different stitch for the knit, or what are you doing? Actually, I'm not using any different stitch than I would use for non-stretchy fabrics, just because I don't have anything else and because you don't need anything else, honestly, because you can just stretch and sew over the knit, and then the seam is also elastic. There are a few other options that you can do. There is, for example, elastic thread, so like made to be elastic. Normal sewing thread is not elastic, so it would rip if you pull on it. But there is specific elastic thread for like knits and stuff, or for elastic fabrics, that you can use for this as well. Or if you don't want to do any of that, you can obviously always use a zigzag stitch. So any domestic machine should have a zigzag stitch. I know that there are like older versions that don't have it, but then you can just stretch and sew like I am doing. So there are plenty of options. Do whatever you like best and whatever suits your project. I always find that stretching and sewing at the same time works perfectly fine, gives you an elastic seam, and for me at least, since I'm not stretching too hard, it's not going to stretch out your necklines, for example, or like your fabric in general, so I never had any issues with that either. But obviously, do whatever you want and what you like best and what you feel most comfortable with. And now with that all pinned together, I can go ahead and stretch and sew, and I will also overlock this. And last but not least, let's put the hem on. Now the hem is made up from two pieces, and we're just gonna close the side seams and then treat it exactly the same as we treated the sleeve hem. So we're just gonna iron the side seams open, fold it on top of itself, and then sew it right sides together with the corpus. And right here you're gonna find notches for the center front and the center back as well. So I like to just match them up and fix them in place with a needle, because I'm going to iron the fold flat, like this fold right here, and I like to have my centers basically matched up already. And now if I put this right on top, it should all be perfectly level. Like this, and now I can just align the side seams with the side seams of my corpus. Right sides together, align the center front and the center back as well. So an overlock, and then we're done. So for the drawstring, I could use any thicker material, you know, like any cotton, thicker cotton rope thread kind of thing, but I want to have something that is at least similar to the color of the fabric. So I'm actually going to use bias tape, and I'm just gonna like fold it right on top of itself and top stitch it so that it is like a bit sturdier, I guess. And then that is what I'm going to use as a drawstring right here, which I'm gonna put in place with a safety pin. So I'm just gonna measure this much. This is very approximate. I'm gonna write obviously all the numbers in the sewing instructions that you can get through the link in the description down below as per usual. I'm actually using an M. This is a unisex jumper. So this is what a normally fitted men's M would be. So this is like a very oversized, nice and cozy hoodie. I'm going to write all of that obviously in the item description of this piece. I really like projects that everybody can enjoy, so this is something very much overdue. So let's top stitch this and then put it in place. And that's it already for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. I really loved this project because I really like the fit of this sweater, and I think this is something every level of sewist can actually finish and, you know, tackle, because it's like a really rewarding, easy project. So if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you'll get notified every time that I post. I post on Sundays, so you can keep an eye out for that. Obviously, I'm not only doing hoodies like this or like easy projects like this, I'm doing projects like all over, you know, like topic wise. So you never know what you will get. It's like very random, whatever I feel like. In the meantime, you can go and check out my social media and give me a follow there. I am posting lots of reels or like shorts or like Pinterest videos, I don't know, all about my projects. So if you just need like some knowledge input or need to get inspired, you can go over there and check out all of my content. The most direct way to support me and keep videos just like this one coming is to head over to my Etsy store, where you can get this pattern as well, and check out all of my other patterns. All of them have a video tutorial to them, so it's super easy to follow. And a special thanks to my channel members. Thank you so much for supporting me and my channel this way. There is a direct link in the description box down below if that is something you would like to do as well. So thank you so much. You're going to be in this list as well. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to see you next Sunday. Bye guys!